more doctors and professors here than I've seen concentrated in one place for a very long time. And that's a good sign when it comes to research and clinical trials, right? So let me use the opportunity, without calling all the names that are here, very distinguished and successful individuals in their respective field. I want to recognize or host location by recognizing Dr. Adams, who is Group Executive Chairman of the UCC Group of Companies, Mr. Chairman who spoke earlier, and our special guests who are here from Modus Therapeutics. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, one and all, good evening to you. Let me apologize for having to leave before what I'm sure will be a lovely dinner. But there are a couple of events that I have to tend to, and it's not an election, by the way. Once you win an election, you have to start performing, so you can win the next one, right? So it's having to perform and stuff over the next couple of years at least. But very, very happy to be here. Happy to be here because it's important, I think, that as a country that has spent a lot on education and training, I think Jamaica can distinguish itself from even before we were independent, given the support of in the colonial days of the church, in building out educational institutions, the regional approach that has developed over time in manifesting itself in the form of the University of the West Indies, and the collaboration and the outreach that has taken place in medical science in particular. We have been able, I think, to distinguish ourselves and to position ourselves as a favored location to conduct advanced research, not just in the interest of ourselves, our people, our community, but in the interest of the region and indeed in the interest of mankind globally. And that was clearly concluded on by our special guests who are here from Sweden, because by when he spoke to Jamaica being seen as the #1 country for a number of this type of work. And I think we can pat ourselves on the shoulder and feel proud. Feel proud that we are part of that process, those of us in this room. But also, I think we should recognize those who came before us, who laid the groundwork and allowed us to be where we are. And from that perspective, today represents a possible celebration for us, for the past, and indeed for those who will benefit in the future. The other important thing I'd like to say, and I've started reading my two-page speech yet, but I will get to it. It has some of the more specific detail, is that I think that it is important for us as a people, as a country, not to be shy about moving into uncharted territory, thinking out of the box, and attempting to make things better by trying to do things differently. And there's a lot of times that we do become hesitant as a people, as a world, to try to address challenges that we face in a different way, perhaps because we have experienced levels of success doing it the way we're doing it now. Perhaps it's just out of uncertainty and fear, which is always an issue with change. And because of that, we tend to be timid oftentimes in making the bold steps that, in the case of medical science, manifests itself in things like of this nature, clinical trials and so on. And there are so many areas that I think are important for us to explore, both in management and in medical science, as part of that thrust to make, and it might sound like a campaign speech, Jamaica great again, and the Caribbean and the region great again, right? And, you know, I think the world and our country are at a stage now where it's not going to hurt to challenge the status quo. it may actually help. Again, if you look at recent developments in the world, if you look at developments here at home in the form of a local government election with a 30% voter turnout, if you look at a United States election and the election of Sir Trump, Donald Trump, who is perhaps the most unlikely candidate in the first instance, and what he has been able to achieve through popular support. You look at Europe and the UK and its exit from the European Union, there is a sense in the world that people are not entirely comfortable, and indeed not comfortable at all in some instances with what is the business as usual approach. And there is a sense that a lot of the issues that we face, really, if we are leaders and are expected to provide leadership at all levels of our society, must know the time is right. It's an opportune time for us to be bold, to be brave, and to shake the process, hopefully with the intention, of course, of trying to make things better. And this represents, I think, one such occasion. And it is why, as a ministry, as a government, we certainly endorse, embrace, and support. Clinical trials are not always uncontroversial, as you know. And in the area of vaccines, it can be quite controversial. When we announced some months ago, in the midst of the siclke outbreak, that we were going to attempt to do some vaccines by participating in this trial to find a solution to siclke. I did receive a number of calls and letters and inquiries from a range of persons throughout the society questioning the approach to participating in those particular trials, because persons were afraid, concerned that we're using our local population as, they say, guinea pigs, experiments. And there is validity in expressing concern to ensure that the process is followed. And we do have a responsibility as a country, as leaders, to ensure that we do not place at risk our people. At the same time, we also have a responsibility to ensure that we work assiduously to make things better and to improve a process. siclke, for example, affected over 8,000 Jamaicans, either confirmed through lab tests or through symptoms that have been displayed. We had well over 100 persons who had GBS, Guillain-Barré syndrome. A few died. And of course, we're preparing, hopefully, not to manifest itself for the possibility of microcephaly. And we have seen its impact throughout the world. The truth is that Jamaica, based on how it has had to deal with that little vector called the Aedes aegypti mosquito, to my mind, have a responsibility to try and to collaborate where necessary, where possible, to confront that particular vector. And that's why come next year, we're going to look to launching a mosquito unit. And we're going to base that within the university system. Discussions have already started. We're going to collaborate with nuclear sciences, with tropical medicine, with PAHO, with the ministry and others, because we believe that good leadership requires some thinking out of the box as it relates to that particular vector, which incidentally is probably the most lethal, not probably, is the most lethal on a global front in terms of a carrier of diseases that are deadly. This is the Aedes aegypti mosquito. And it may involve, and likely to involve, a siclke vaccine trial. And if we have to confront some of the criticisms, we will. It's important, though, that we do it in an ethical way and ensure that it's done to support the greater good of the society. Today, it's the same. And so, in that respect, and I'm going to my speech now, I want to use the opportunity to really say with pleasure, to endorse this very important project for the Caribbean communities, for Jamaica's research community, for health providers, and hopefully over time, for patients who are suffering from sickle cell disease. In the spirit of Prof. Sargent, the father of sickle cell disease research in Jamaica, we are proud that Jamaican health institutions are taking the lead on this subject, which is a first, or certainly one of the most significant of its kind here in Jamaica. Sickle cell disease, as you know, is a chronic and potentially debilitating disease. It's severe and results in a range of ailments, including a shortening of one's life. Approximately 5% of the world's population carries trait genes of sickle cell disease, in one of the most common genetic disorders, and affects persons in Africa, Asia, the Middle East, Europe, Central, South, and North America, and indeed the Caribbean. Jamaica's reality is that some 10% of the population carry the sickle cell trait and are at risk of having a child with sickle cell disease. 1 in every 150 Jamaican children has a form of sickle cell disease, and every year approximately 300 babies are born in Jamaica with sickle cell disease. With such a wide cross-section of affected regions, it is crucial that we find more effective treatment for this ailment. Treatment and management of sickle cell disease requires a lot of resources in the healthcare system. Between 2003 and 2010, over 6,000 Jamaicans were hospitalized due to sickle cell disease at the level of a crisis, which required, of course, hospitalization. Over that same period, some 2,000 persons were hospitalized with sickle cell disease, but without none in a non-severe capacity. It is estimated that the management of sickle cell disease can cost a patient up to 200,000 Jamaican dollars annually. Sickle cell disease remains one of the priority conditions that has been included under the cabinet-approved National Strategic and Action Plan for the Prevention and Control of NCDs 2013 to 2018. The Ministry of Health has implemented targets for sickle cell disease under this plan. Jamaica now has over 99% of newborns screened for sickle cell disease in the public sector, and we are much closer to universal testing. We received a grant through the South-South cooperation with Brazil PAHO and the Ministry of Health and PAHO Jamaica for the procurement of a high-performance liquid chromatography, I think that's it, right? Chromatography machine for newborn screening. Still learning the medical term, right? Since the machine was commissioned in 2015, over 10,000 tests have been performed as of October 31st, 2015. Persons with sickle cell disease continue to benefit, as it is one of 16 chronic illnesses on the National Health Fund's individual benefit program, and over 100 healthcare workers have been trained in sickle cell disease treatment. The National Health Fund has also added sickle cell to the list of illnesses that can access subsidized drugs. There is still more to be done, of course, which is part of the reason why we're here today. And this study is therefore very timely and certainly welcome. Also, with the infrastructure of the University of the West Indies and the Caribbean Institute of Medical Research, we will be able to undertake your upcoming Phase 3 project at full capacity. We are aware of the ethical implications, which I spoke to earlier, and an effective system of review of the ethical propriety of the research. And we know that it is critical to safeguard the participants in the research, the reputation of Jamaica as a destination for research. And from the ministry's perspective and the government's perspective, we will maintain a keen interest in ensuring that the ethics of the research is preserved in order to ensure that the interests of all concerned are protected and supported. Jamaican health institutions are uniquely positioned to be able to partake in leading international studies, considering most of our doctors are trained both here but also in the US, in Canada, in the UK. They speak the language, the universal language, fluent English, and are familiar with most Western medical systems. Our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Delahaye, who unfortunately isn't here because he went off the island on business travel today, is working, based on discussions we've had, on streamlining and facilitating the ethical committee approval process so that we can reduce the time needed for approval and increase the number of studies conducted, not just here in Jamaica, but also regionally. Finally, we welcome in our country and wish the best of success for your company to bring this important therapy to our patients and to all the sickle cell patients regionally and worldwide. The Ministry of Health is committed to reducing the prevalence of non-communicable diseases, including sickle cell disease. And I certainly commend all of you who are here today, all the stakeholders and all the participants, those who are not here also, for agreeing to participate in this process. It's truly a collaborative effort, and one we think, once done the right way, can and will lead to the well-being and the greater good of our society. I wish you all the best. Thank you very much.